Welcome to this webinar series, which is a part of the Investor Education and Awareness Initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund in association with Outlook Money, India's #1 personal finance magazine. Today, we are discussing about a financial goal that is often ignored but is among the most important. We have a panel of 4 experts to discuss the topic retirement planning, how to secure your golden years. It is estimated that the number of retired people is only going to steadily increase over the years. And therefore, it becomes very, very important for people to start thinking about retirement early on, which a lot of segments do not do, especially the younger segments. So today, we are going to discuss this topic. I am Nidhi Sinha, moderator of this discussion and editor Outlook Money. And I'll start with introducing the panelists today. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. K.S. Rao, who's the head of Investor Education and Distribution Development at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC. Mr. Rao has been striving to take financial literacy and investor education across the country. We also have with us Mr. Amit Trivedi, who is an author, speaker, blogger, and trainer. And he has written many books on financial planning and markets, including Riding the Roller Coaster. Our third panelist today is Mr. P.V. Subramaniam. He's a chartered accountant, a trainer, educated, and author on a very interesting book on retirement. And I'm sure he'll be sharing details from that today. The fourth expert on this panel is Mr. Harsh Rungta, a personal finance and tax expert, SEBI RIA, and author. And he's been part of the retail lending industry for a really long time. So let us start the discussion on retirement, Mr. Rao. One of the things that one looks forward to during retirement is peace of mind, because you think that, your working life is over, your responsibilities are over. Now we can relax. And one of the factors that can play a role in that is having your financial planning sound and having enough to take care of your post-retirement needs. So could you explain the basic things that one should keep in mind when retirement planning and how that can provide confidence and peace of mind to an individual?
Thanks, Nidhi. Thanks for having me. And indeed, again, it's an honor. I look at when I look at this book of Retiring Rich, I don't think I need to tell anything how everyone need to aspire for that, retiring rich. And but if I look at retirement planning before we do, probably fundamentally every one of us need to look. Maybe I look at these 5 questions one need to ask. I mean, pre-retirement or when you are planning. It is like all that, how much I'm starting with on retirement, what is the amount of money I need it. The first question I need to look at. And second is how long this money should last. Like, means how long I'm going to live my life. I'm expected to live my life, whether, my life lasts money or my money lasts beyond my life. And the third one is how do you want to end up with it? It's in most of the occasions where me and Amit we discuss about the legacy which you plan, the one you want to give it, whether you are giving to your family or to the church or to the charity, what is that you need to get. And the question comes here is how much return you are looking at it on the corpus, what you are looking at when you are looking at it. Predominantly, I'm talking about somebody who is retiring at 55 or 60 and they are planning for it. And the last question need to ask is what kind of risk we need to take. And we always presume that the moment we retire, our ability to take risk will become, riskometer comes back to 0, which may not be right. And that's where we need to look at, we need to reassess what is that I need to look at. And then here comes the ROI, which we normally talk about. But in the retirement, I look at ROI can be redefined in a various ways. The first ROI is regularity of my income. That is the most important part of it. And second ROI I look at is the reliability of income. How far you are getting, how guaranteedly you are getting it. Whether that is there is a volatility on getting that. And the third ROI I look at is the rate of interest you are earning. And this depends on the fourth ROI is the rate of inflation which the country is running and which country you are living in, how that inflation can define. And the last one ROI is when I put my money, it is return of investment or return on investment. If I can put these questions right, and rest of the things can always be planned.
Great. So that was a, 5 ROIs that our viewers should, keep in mind. Will kind of take them on the path, will guide them on the path to sound retirement planning and a post-retired life with the peace of mind they may be looking forward to. So, but coming to you, Mr. Rungta, during the process of retirement planning, what are the key factors that one should look at, keep in mind, and what are the factors that one should avoid if we have to list it like that for people?
So if you define retirement as a period during which you have no earnings, no earned earnings, right? Let's define it that way rather than through an age or a number, etc. Then the starting point could be that you need a replacement for that income to the extent of expenses, right? So you would need to estimate what those expenses could be. And that's not an easy exercise for a lot of people. And there can be, and in fact, the more the higher the lifestyle you lead, more difficult it is for you to sort of imagine the kind of lifestyle you will lead when the income is no longer coming in, right? Some of the things. So I mean, you can write Subraya has written a book on this, right? So we are going to just do this in 5 minutes. So what I would like to highlight are two things that people miss most when they are estimating these expenses. Okay. One is, unlike today, when somebody is in his 30s or 40s, their family, their social circles, their folks back at home, back in the village, wherever they come from, in the community that they are part of, they look at them very differently. But when that same person retires, let's say now from a senior position, the expectation of the family, of the community, of every social folks that they interact with is very different, right? And that sort of imposes a certain cost on you, which is not inconsequential. Okay. And I think people also would like to do that. I think Mr. Rao mentioned about the imperative, the felt need to give back, right? So all these things, I don't think people really look at seriously, and that is as much a part of your retirement planning. It's not a top up over your expenses. I think at that stage of your life, okay, because if you're not going to give back at that time to your family, to your social circles, to your community, when are you going to do it? Okay, so I think that is one part. The second part, I think that again is frequently missed out, is this, that we are living for so long now, right? And what we call the last decade of our lives, typically, okay, is spent disabled effectively. How you end up spending the last decade of your life, okay, health-wise, social-wise, everything-wise. But a lot of people have a very difficult last decade of their lives, right? And that has lots of financial implications. One among them is long-term care. Okay. Now, long-term care typically worldwide is taken care of through insurance, maybe through reverse mortgages. Now, reverse mortgage as a product exists in India, but again, it's not being used for this purpose.
Right.
The point is, people don't think about long-term care. And that long-term care may or may not be needed, but more and more people are increasingly needing it. And that's very easily, you can dovetail your long-term care requirements with your legacy requirements. If the long-term care because most people don't have all the money in the world that they will separate out for long-term care and separate out for legacy. So one of the ways that we have found for clients is that it's allocated to long-term care, but if it is not used, it can go to legacy. So long-term care for yourself, long-term care for your spouse. If both of you don't need to use it, then it goes to the children or any other place where you want your legacy to go to.
Right. So, Mr. Rungta is talking about this, putting creating these separate buckets on, say, long-term care and legacy. So, Mr. Subramaniam, I want you to come in here and also tell our viewers about even during the phase of saving for retirement, how does one balance between different goals? Because they are also different buckets of life, which you need to cater to. And if you could also give us some insights from your much discussed book today.
Okay, my book is not meant for the older people. It's meant for the 22-year-old starting the journey as to how to invest and how to insure and things like that.
Yeah. So
But
right,
no,
we are
coming
today we are also trying to address retirement planning. So maybe a younger person who
Yeah.
needs to wake up to this need to do it early as soon as possible. Yeah, please go ahead.
So one thing is prioritizing goals. You have to understand one thing. You will never be able to borrow for your retirement because you're borrowing basically because people think you will be able to repay. You don't have a home loan, don't have a car loan, you don't have a vacation loan, you have a Form 16 loan. When they see you have a good qualification and a good job, they can afford to give you a loan because they know from the salary you're going to repay. So you
Right.
cannot borrow for your retirement. So your topmost priority has to be your retirement. Anything else you can borrow or your children can borrow. So you can always tell your child, oh, it's going to cost you 70 lakhs to study. Fantastic. I'll give you 20. Go and borrow the other 30, 40, 50, whatever you need. So priority has to be your retirement and not children's education, children's marriage or anything else. And those who don't believe this should watch any channel. They've shown Bhagwan 25 times. If you missed it, go and watch. They will show it to you again. So you have to understand that when you prioritize, children think it is their right to get the money from you, but that also happens because we don't communicate enough with our children. What is reasonable and what is unreasonable, children don't know. Children don't know whether it is their right to ask you for a 35 lakh education or for a 2.5 crore education. Your job is to communicate and say, look, my priority is retirement. I'm going to live till this age, perhaps, and I need to provide for. Also understand, Nidhi, that you don't know how long you will live. You do not know how much corpus you will start with. You do not know what will be the rate of return you get. You don't know how much you will spend. And the most important thing, you could one of these things going wrong and you'll be completely out of money for your retirement. I was doing a lecture in Lucknow and it's normal for me to ask, how long do you think you will live? So one of the guys got up and said, I don't know, but my neighbor is 114, right? 114.
Okay.
None of us prepare for that kind of a life. We may prepare for 80 or 90, but 114 we are not prepared for, right? So anything going wrong, rate of interest falling, your investment in equities being wiped out, anything going wrong can completely change. And I wouldn't have said with so much of ferocity if I had not seen people going wrong during COVID. Because if a person retired with say 90 lakhs for retirement saying, oh, my consultant has told me I spend 3 lakhs a year, so 30 years income is 90 lakhs. I have that much as a corpus. Completely wiped out 40 lakhs or 30 lakhs due to COVID. I mean, maybe his mother, maybe his wife or father, somebody wiped out 30, 40 lakhs. You have to go back to your job. So how much money you have? What is a comfortable level? Like, if there's a 7 o'clock train, some people are happy reaching at 6:55, and there are some people who are happy reaching at 6. Saying, I'll go, I'll find my place, I'll fill up water, I'll sit down. So there are, it's your attitude. I can only say, okay, you need 2 crores for retirement. Somebody is happy at 199. Somebody needs 5 crores to be happy, saying, no, what if something goes wrong or things like that. So each person has to decide. So you have to decide what is your priority, and your topmost priority has to be retirement. Like I said, you can borrow for your retirement. You don't know how long you will live. So if you die early, that's good. But if you don't die early, you need money to last. You have to remember one thing, your money has to last longer than you last. So children's education, yes, it's important, but children should be able to borrow for their education, not totally depend on it. If you have 20 crores and your child needs 2 crores, but if you have 3 crores and your child needs 2 crores, just don't give it. So your priority has to be retirement, not children's education, not children's marriage, nothing else. Because your retirement, if you don't have, old age is bad, and old age without money is terrible. right? So please remember that. So we're preparing for your old age financially is very important.
Definitely. That is quite a scary picture that Mr. Subramaniam has presented, but it is largely true. And that is why this discussion is so important, and people really need to wake up to this need and start preparing, investing, and planning accordingly. So, but when it comes to, we have established that, retirement planning is really, really important and above a lot of other goals. But, one of the questions that you often hear is that, okay, I have started saving, but how do I decide that I'm saving enough? Like Mr. Subramaniam was also highlighting, you might not know what goes wrong in the future. So, Mr. Trivedi, if you would like to take that question, what are the factors that one should consider when planning that I will save XX% every month from my salary or something like that?
Subra actually had answered this question when he wrote his book for the first time, Invest ₹40 a day. Right now, look at the date of publication and adjust the amount for inflation, and most people should be fine, right, Subra? But no, yeah.
Yeah, today it will have to be an increasing SIP, 40 in the first year, 44 in the second year, 48 in the third year.
Right.
But Nidhi, you're right, Subra. The reality check he presented is really scary for a lot of people, and that's why Subra finds it comforting to go to Kanha and visit tigers, and that's less scarier for him than facing retirement question. So now let's come to some of the pointers that we need to look at, and there are some of the factors that one needs to look at to arrive at some number to begin with. Now, whether you start with ₹40 a day with an increasing SIP, or how much you should be comfortable with, let's look at some of the factors. So the factor number one, and this is the known thing for any individual, is the current age. The second, a little knowable thing but little uncertain, is the age at retirement. But third is the unknown, the age at the time of death, or the longevity. Now that's unknown, and that longevity is increasing by the day. Incidentally, statistically, it is proved that my longevity at 50 could be, let's say, I'm just taking an example. If my longevity is 75 when I'm 50 years, at 60, it is likely to be 78. So as I age, my longevity is likely to inch up a bit. And this is statistics, because people who are at my age, if all of them are likely to live till 75 on an average, because we look at that average number, between 50 and 60, some might have passed away. So those who survived at 60, they have to live slightly longer. Okay, and that's how the insurance companies also build their actuarial tables. So the longer you live, the longer you are likely to live. And it's counterintuitive, but that's how it works in real life. So this is number one. So your longevity. And that's why the example of that 114-year-old person is a real eye-opener. So that's the age-related factors, three factors. Then the current corpus that you have, how much income you will need in the first year of retirement, and if there are any other financial goals that you might have to fund in the retirement age. I mean, that's another factor that a lot of people don't count, but there are families we've seen where a grandfather is funding a grandchild's education because the parent of the child is not in a financially good condition. And I'm not talking about somebody doing out of will. I'm talking about somebody doing out of compulsion because the next generation is not capable. Okay. So if there's any such thing, account for it. If you have any other goals, like you love to travel, you love to do charity, put down those goals on paper and assign an amount towards that. Okay, so that's the three other factors. Then again, the tough question, which is the inflation for a youngster. How much is the expected inflation in the earning years when you are accumulating, and how much is the inflation going to be in the retirement years? I'm sure even the Reserve Bank governor or the Chairman Planning Commission doesn't have an answer to this question, but we still have to start with an assumption.
Right.
Then comes a related point, which is return on investment, in the pre-retirement age and the post-retirement age. If your portfolio composition changes, the difference between the two phases is in the pre-retirement age, you are putting more money into the corpus. In the post-retirement phase, you are withdrawing money from the corpus. And that's how the composition of the portfolio must be, it can't be the same. And of course, finally, do you really want to leave something for the next generation? Do you want to leave something for some charity of your choice, etc., etc.? But as Harshad was mentioning, the charity must begin at home. So first you take care of your requirements, which includes long-term care. And long-term care, I think it needs to be simply repeated what Harshad was mentioning. We do not have solutions at this stage in India. Reverse mortgage has not taken off properly. And there are some scary stories in even getting the loans sanctioned, reverse mortgage loans sanctioned, and people are finding it difficult. And long-term care insurance just does not exist. And in such a case, if we don't count that much, the worst part is, and that's what when a lot of people talk about retiring early, I really find it funny. You can actually extend your retirement work till 70, but if you need money at 90, nobody will give you a job.
Right.
You are unemployable at that age. So need to put these numbers and then arrive at something which tells you how much you should save on a regular basis. There are a few calculators available in the Outlook Money site. Also, there are calculators which can help you calculate this kind of sums. Look at that, but be very conservative in your assumptions. It is better to err on the wrong side rather than being over ambitious and then getting a negative surprise when it is already too late.
Right. So those are very important points. But one of the things that comes to mind is that for most people, handling all these factors themselves may be a big challenge. So, Mr. Rungta, I would like to, like to ask you, what is the role of financial advisory in retirement planning? Because, there will be a lot of things. There will be hiccups in general people's lives, and they may be too busy, to be fair, where they do not have the bandwidth. So if you could highlight that.
So I think we can mistake this webinar for a marketing webinar for all financial advisors, because
not at all. My financial freedom cover is on advisory, because we at Outlook Money see that advisory is so important for financial freedom.
Absolutely. This was just on the lighter vein.
Sure.
So the point is ki, if you look at how most people think that what advisors will tell them is invest here, this will give you the highest return, invest there, that is less risky. I think that's that comes later, much later, right? I think Subra also mentioned, and Amit also mentioned about prioritizing retirement. And you mentioned whenever you travel by air, you hear that announcement, right? That if you have a child traveling with you, and if oxygen masks drop overhead, you should first put on your own mask and then help the child, right? Your own child, maybe, right? Because you will be able to help the child if you yourself are secure. And I think that retirement is that oxygen mask that you have to put on yourself, rather than first looking at your child's or any other obligations that you have. It does not mean that those obligations are not important. What it means is that you will be able to look at those obligations once you have taken care of your own obligation to yourself. I think, and that is very important, because unfortunately, most people do two things. One, they never prioritize. And when you never prioritize, typically, chronologically, okay, if you again redefine retirement as the time when you stop earning, chronologically, retirement happens the last, right? And therefore, it automatically gets the last priority, because people just look at things that are in front of them. They don't really do planning to do ki retirement is, more important, child's education, maybe marriage. So if the child's marriage happens first, okay, then if the money is spent there, if you force your client to do that trade-off, this is the trade-off you are doing, okay, I think the client takes a much more informed and a much more rational decision, and really the advisors value in gold that is there. The second thing is people looking at absolute amounts, so, if you're looking at a 25-year-old and he says, oh, I am on target, okay, to get 1 crore at the end of 60 years. Okay, now 1 crore to him at that stage of his life, okay, or her life, may appear to be a huge sum of money. The moment you apply expected inflation, etc., that and the fact that you will live maybe 30 years after that 60 years, that amount will appear puny. So I think these are some of the things, okay, that you really need to plan. And when you plan, it gives you freedom, because even the sense when you're undertaking a long journey, and life is a long journey, right? When you're undertaking a journey, as long as you feel that you are moving in the right direction, maybe there will be setbacks during certain points of time. But as long as you feel that you're moving in the right direction, that itself gives you so much confidence, okay, that it allows you to overcome setbacks which might otherwise, pull down other people. Therefore, doing a mapping exercise, doing a planning exercise before you start on this journey called life, okay, can really pay huge dividends.
Okay. So coming to you, Mr. Rao, of course, Mr. Rungta highlighted why it's very, very important to plan well and think about it from an early stage. So we all know that if you think about it and start investing early, it might give you the kind of dividends that starting late might not. But what if someone has missed that bus, and what if someone is starting to invest late? Are there any strategies, or are there any specific things that they can do to kind of cover the distance?
Thanks, Nidhi, for it. I mean, indeed, the most of us will fall in that bucket where we all intend to plan, but we'll never. And as Harshji was rightly said, this is one goal we always think, it can be postponed, but it happens suddenly. And this is one goal where you won't get any loans, but you need to plan for it. Unfortunately, we miss the bus. And however, what we can do is, sometimes you plan late, but what you need to do is you need to compensate with it. It's like, it's like match up your contributions. For example, if I have to create some corpus if I start at 30, start early, then I would have saved less. But now I'm starting at 40, then I need to enhance my savings. Then how I need to enhance my savings to reach. Second, earlier when Amit was talking about, I can extend my retirement age. The second part is my destination. I can postpone for a while. Then since I start late, I need to work little more longer. Third could be there is a fantastic instrument which we all, the provident fund contributions which happens to us. Can I catch up my contributions? Can I expand? And the third is like in mutual fund parlance, we always call is a step up SIPs. I can increase my SIPs. And this is on the enhancing your supply side. But on the demand side, what you need to look at is how I can minimize my expenses, how I can redefine myself, how I can confine to I can do it. And for me, the golden age can become a golden age when that you're living that word of GOLD, gold. And that G stands for me is you are gainfully engaged. Probably don't retire, you can get gainfully engaged, you can put something. And then that O stands for me is optimally invested. The optimally invested, if I start early, then fine, I can take little risk. And if I start late, probably I can need to take more risk. And I need to put that my investment should earn little more optimally. Then third, that L stands for me in the gold is your lifestyle. If I start early, I have lived a lifestyle of my choice. Now, if I start late, I need to live a lifestyle of the corpus choice. And the last one is the D, I mean, that D part is I have a discrimination to live, reach wherever I want. The D I can replace with a discipline, and where the discipline is, I can live within the means. And it is not the like what I call it as I need to live out of distractions. Probably if I have started early, I would have lived out of a divinity. I would have spent something more. Probably either way, you can redefine your goal that can work for you. And these are the few strategies one can adapt.
Right. So redefine your strategies as per the goal definition that Mr. Rao has put out. But I want to take this discussion a step ahead. Mr. Subramanian, what if, we are, of course, talking about these assumed circumstances, but there are people who suddenly realize at the time of retirement that, oh, I didn't really wake up and didn't really save or spent all my money on my children. So what can be some of the strategies that they can look at? Like reverse mortgage is one option that was being discussed, but it's not very well developed in India. So what are the other things that one can look at?
Actually, when people ask me what is the risk of investing poorly or not investing well, it's very simple. So from the age of 60 till the age of 75 or 76, you have lived independently. At 76, you may have to go and live with your children. There is no choice other than that. You can't suddenly hope for something better. Hope is not strategy. You also asked how much money should one have for retirement. I think youngsters, you should give a clear goal that you should have 1 million US dollars, which means about 8 crores. Will that be sufficient? No, but only when you're 60 will you be able to say exactly how much you need. At 30, you cannot estimate how much you need. So 1 million US dollars is a good way to target. So right now it means about 8 crores, 8.5 crores, whatever. So what can you do? Really not much. It's easy to say, oh, ye kar lo, wo kar lo, but really can't do anything. You have to hope that your children are doing well and they have enough money to look after you. Reverse mortgage may not be available because your house may be old. If my house is 20 years old, it's not eligible for reverse mortgage.
Oh.
At the time of reverse mortgage, my house has to be less than 17 years old. So it's very difficult to get a reverse mortgage done. But yes, you can shift from a more expensive locality. Like if you're in Bombay, if you're in Santa Cruz, you can always sell in Santa Cruz and go to Mira Road or something like that. So you sell your house for 4.5 crores, shift to a house for 1 crore, and you'll have 3.5 crores left. Something like that. Reduce the size of your house, shift to a cheaper location, or maybe shift back to your village where you may be able to live more frugally. Or you have to hope that your children look after you. There is no, I mean, you can't suddenly wake up and say, oh, I turned 60. The day you're born, you know when you're going to turn 60. So it's foolish to say, I didn't know I'm going to retire. I mean, all of us know we are going to retire. The question is how soon you wake up. And there's no excuse for not waking up because people are retiring around you. So at least at 40 or 45, you have to wake up and whatever you can, you should start investing. And like what Mr. Rao said, you can always be gainfully doing something, right? There are 3 stages. One is retirement, then there is the Vanaprasthashram, and then there is Sannyasashram. In the Vanaprasthashram, you're still giving back to society. So maybe you're doing training, maybe you're doing counseling, maybe you're doing coaching. Maybe you could have done it free if you had enough money. But since you don't have money, you may have to charge for that. And you really retire when you're 75 or something. Most important thing is take care of your health because one medical bill can set you back dramatically. So you have to hope that your children are there to look after you. For people who don't have enough money and don't have children, them it's a bigger challenge, but then they don't have to leave anything back. So they can just sell off their house, live in a smaller town or something like that and have some surplus. But really there is no excuse for sleeping till the age of 60 like Rip Van Winkle and suddenly waking up and saying, Aaj main retire ho gaya. Boss, kuch mat karo, jao aish karo. You have behaved badly so far, you will pay the price.
Absolutely. It's inexcusable and ultimately you are responsible for your future. So that responsibility has to be taken head on and as early as possible. But talking about post-retirement years, and we'll come to the end of this discussion because we've spoken about how to invest, where to invest, and how to be conscious about all this. Mr. Trivedi, what other factors you were hinting at that also? What other expenses that should one look at post-retirement? Because some of the expenses will also go down, like your children's fees, for example. But there are others that may crop up unexpectedly. So what should be one prepared for?
I think what Subra was just highlighting, medical expenses. That's a big, and it can just come out of nowhere and hit you where it hurts the most.
So the biggest
Uh,
chunk.
Yeah. So it can simply take away a large part of your lifelong savings. So that's one thing that you need to factor. Fortunately, there are insurance policies available, health insurance policies available these days, which can cover health issues for a longer period, and even available for people up to an extended age. Earlier, beyond 60, the policies were also not getting issued. So now some relaxations have happened, which is a very welcome move by the regulators, and one should explore those. So that's number one. Number two is, again, I'll go back to what Harsher mentioned, the long-term care. Now, long-term care need not only be related to medical condition, but something or medical treatment. It could be some condition arising out of medical issues. For example, because of the old age, my muscles have become weak and I can't hold my utensils. No, I can't cook in the house. I'll need somebody to do that. I think no health insurance would cover the salary of a cook simply because my muscles are weak.
Right.
Some such stuff. So long-term care and the affiliated expenses and healthcare are two major issues that we need to really think hard about. The other thing, and because we are talking about extended life, there's this movie called 102 Not Out featuring Amitabh Bachchan and Rishi Kapoor. Rishi Kapoor, the son, was 80 years old in that movie.
Right.
So if I'm going to live till 102, I'm no longer dependent on my children. I'll have to be dependent on my grandchildren, and probably they are approaching their retirement age. And that's really something that needs to be kept in mind. I don't really see a solution right away for such a situation. But at least if we are able to visualize a possibility, a faint possibility of that, I think that's the first step that we would have taken. But the two major expenses, again, repeating, health-related expenses and long-term care-related expenses. These are two that we need to keep in mind.
So definitely, I mean, a lot of scenarios that our experts have highlighted that should really scare you up and should be a wake-up call if you haven't already started planning for your retirement. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for this engaging conversation today on retirement, which is an ignored subject, but very, very important for investors to wake up to. Thanks a lot.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.